was another week of testimonies at the Madlanga Commission investigating allegations of corruption in the criminal justice system. Now, the focus today continued to be on the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department. And for more on this, Professor Kholofelo Rakubu is from the Department of Safety and Security Management at the Tshwane University of Technology and joins us now to help us unpack this week's proceedings. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. I want to start off here. This week, we saw the likes of Dumisani Kumalo returning back to the Madlanga Commission, of course, after he fell ill. And maybe let's start with some of his testimonies. He had a lot to say, particularly when it comes to the raids that took place at Vusmuzi Kat Matlala and Katiso KT Mulefe's homes.
Good evening and thank you for having me. An interesting week indeed and much anticipated return of General Kumalo. He came in now to continue with his testimony, and it was centered around political infiltration, and he even tried to tap into how the crime cartel or the syndicate together with politicians and compromise police units communicate, because he tried to even share frustrations around search and seizures and name dropping during such, and also secretive operations, because at some point we got to understand why Hawks was not even informed of certain operations at a particular house. But interestingly, he highlighted and shared evidence around this political infiltration or political protection, because now a particular figure was then shown in a CCTV footage being in a very compromised position, visiting a particular household of an interested party in a particular case. So now that also bolstered his evidence of this, because for quite some time he has been centering his evidence and testimony around the difficulties within the organization and the magnitude of infiltration. So his testimony was a bit shifting, because now the narrative is no longer about isolated incident, but about systemic corruption. From where he started to where he ended, now we understand he was able to take us from A to B a bit, because the shift has been now around systemic. Now we understand this systemic corruption that he has been alleging for quite some time.
And when you talk about, of course, Dumisani Kumalo being able, to move some of these investigations, it brings me to the issues that he dealt with, where he linked, of course, the suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner, and that's Shadrack Sibia, to some of the crime cartels. Also, at the same time, linking a car that he was using at some point to, of course, a convicted carjacker. What do you make of that testimony that now also then pins on the suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner?
He was able to now highlight the magnitude of operational compromise. Imagine a critical figure such as Sibia and somebody from Sibia's office utilizing a car dedicated to Sibia's office to go and visit an interested party. Obviously, investigators in that case were compromised. As to what extent were they compromised and the safety of their lives, that is a question for another day, but that reflected the magnitude and what is some concern, what is some finding that they were compromised, and also the nature of collaboration between law enforcers and cartels. That also was clearly specified, because you could see plastics moving around and also that CCTV footage strengthened the evidence of the infiltration, because we no longer question collaboration between suspects or criminals and law enforcers. So that he has been able to clearly indicate. And then your secretive operations, because remember it lingered for quite some time as to how come Hawks was now interested in verifying the presence of particular members in the Katiso Mulefe's home. Then it shows the issues of what? Biasness, and it also secretive, because we do not trust each other. This operational compromise elements were already identified, and now his testimony strengthened these allegations that they do exist. You investigate, then other members within your organization, they collaborate. So this shows the danger around investigations and the frustrations they faced. Hence, maybe some cases were not moving, particularly when it comes to prosecution and finalization. So he was able then to take us to day 3 and day 4, or day 4 and day 5. So with his testimony, I think he closed the particular chapter. Hence, we were able now to move to EMPD to now look into other aspects, because he closed that. Now we understand what was happening that side, and maybe and possibly it might even bolster his credibility. Remember, he's implicated somewhere. So now coming with verifiable digital evidence that is credible at some point, because question here is whether you have substantive evidence and verifiable evidence. So his last days in the commission was a bit evidential, because he provided that evidence and to a greater extent provided verifiable digital evidence. Then now we are EMPD, and we are expecting the same, that okay, with these explosive allegations of corruption and the culture of impunity, resource misuse, and deviance, allied deviance, organizational deviance, your limited powers within the EMPD, allegations around that. One is also interested in verifiable evidence around all those allegations, because they are very worrisome. There was a troubling picture that is painted of the functionality, resilience, and ability to deliver mandate in the EMPD, and the compromised leadership as well in the EMPD. So we're interested in evidence to substantiate all these allegations that today's witness provided.
And Professor, speaking about the EMPD today again, of course, so we do know that Isaac Mapia, he was on the stand for at least 2 days. It was yesterday and today, and maybe you know, just to give you know, a bit of clarity when it comes to those blue lights that were under the spotlight for quite some time. What do you make there of the evidence that he presented over the past 2 days, and particularly the one that hones in on the blue lights, of course, blue lights that were allegedly used by Vusumuzi Matlala?
Like I said, he provided, he painted a troubling picture, and resource misuse was in the center. But one is interested in the evidence to substantiate all this, because now there's allegations that EMPD's assets were used for private or criminal purposes, and that also is signaling systemic failure. And he tapped into an array of issues, because from his testimony, there were questions about functionality of EMPD, because he hopped from compromised leadership to procedural breakdown, right? And then loss of operational integrity to limited legal scope. And also, as he was testifying, one could also tap into the gaps that makes EMPD vulnerable to this alleged infiltration, because now there are issues of weak oversight mechanisms. There are also issues of political interference, and also issues of your opaque HR processes, because he touched on irregular promotions and appointments, and also create loyalty networks over merits. And the resource misuse was center, culture of impunity. People could do whatever they want at their own time. But we're interested in the verifiable evidence of these allegations. And this is his side of the story. Another side must come into counter-argue. All
right, Professor, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. That's Professor Kholofelo Rakubu there. She is from the Tshwane University of Technology, the Department of Safety and Security, just unpacking for us this week's proceedings at the Madlanga Commission.